Here, and this is Tactical Trading. This is a new series where I look at different ways to trade, ways that you guys are familiar with, but perhaps you haven't had explained very well. But we're going to take it a little more step further than that and look at things as far as the anatomy of trading, so to speak, and see how can we be smarter about it? How can we be more tactical? Because I really think a big reason why people are not trading as effectively is because they don't know a few caveats in their process. So if you have joined, or if you haven't seen my videos, or if you have seen my videos, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. I've got very few subscribers, so it is much more appreciative now than it would be later on. Helps the algorithm, helps me to make more videos. So you interacting helps me know what type of content to make. So in addition to that, this is a series. This is only the second video of probably a 10 video series. I'm going to try to be flexible with that based on the content that I have to share. But the first video talks about positioning. So how to enter your trades. And there's two different ways that you enter trades. If you have not seen the video, I go into pretty good detail about that. In fact, this second video was supposed to be part of the first video, but I kind of went too long with that, in my opinion. I wanted to split this up and be more informational with this. So if you haven't seen it, watch the first one. This second video here is going to talk about stop losses, now that we have entered a trade, and this video will require you to know the first video. We're going to look at how we enter trades, but then how do we adjust our stop losses? Why do we have them? What's the point of them? What makes a good stop loss? So we're going to kind of go through that, and the idea is it helps you with better trades. So let's just dive right in and get started. So first things first, let's just look at a plain, we'll just look at a regular chart, blank chart, and we'll just kind of go like this. So I've kind of put this a little more blank, got all the stuff out of the way for now. You can see right here, long position, short position. These are what we worked with the first video, and this is what we'll work with today. So if you have a standard long position like this, and I'm going to go ahead and put this like so. This line right here is your entry, and you can customize this on your trading view or whatever chart you're using. But I honestly, at all times, whether it's a spot, leverage, whatever, to have this set up. If you don't even use a position chart set up, I really think that that's probably the biggest reason why you're not effective in your trading. Because if you don't have this, you don't have the criteria of your entry. This tells you your entry. This tells you the R value. This tells you your stop, how far away you are, and this tells you your take profit and how far away you are from that. If you don't have this information, then the only thing that you know is your entry, and maybe if you know that, unless you're just hitting long and not caring, then you don't even know your entry. You don't know your stop. You don't know your take profit. You don't even know your size, and those are very problematic if you are trading like that, because you're more susceptible to your emotions. Like, you see a big pump, you want to take profit, not realizing that you took profit here, and then all of a sudden it ran up to here, so you lost out, right? Or vice versa. Maybe you went down here, but like, oh, I can take it, and then you bleed out. Or you make a position here, and you see this candle. So on a replay, for example, you see this candle play out. There you go. You see that, and you're like, oh, I guess I'll sell my position so I don't lose it. And then you go ahead and it runs up. So without having that context of an actual like short and long position, it removes all the context of your current trade, and that is very, very, very dangerous in my opinion, because it doesn't give you the current context for your trade. So I think that's very important. So that's kind of a precept to all of this. And so what we learned in the first video is this is your entry, and you can flex this as you go, but this is your stop loss area. This is This is your stop loss right here at the bottom. So if I enter, so to speak, at 29, 300 essentially, my stop placement is 29 even. And so what that tells me is then if I enter here at basically 29.3, I'm comfortable keeping that position, holding it underwater, potentially losing money until I get to this. So if you are going from here as your entry down to here, you are comfortable losing 7.7%. So let's go ahead and maybe dial it up to maybe 1. So make it a little easier on your math. So you are comfortable holding this position 1%, but once you get to here, that position is no longer comfortable to hold. So then you would sell that position. And so I talk about this very extensively in Apex Academy. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a 12-week course that I offer. I'm also going to offer a monthly option for things like trades and portfolio management, things like that. If you don't know that, just go ahead and DM me or send me a comment on this YouTube or on this video. I think it's probably going to be posted on YouTube. So let me know, and then I'll sign you up for the wait list. So this is your area of stop loss, and so this becomes your stop loss right here, the 28,970, as we have adjusted this. So once you get here, that's when you are not comfortable with your position any longer, and so that means you should exit. And so that's kind of the interpretation of kind of the basics of what the stop loss and stop loss area is. And as you can see, this might be problematic for some, because I know people that they'll enter here and then they'll go like this or whatever. It might go up, might go down a little bit, but then it eventually goes down, and then they're not comfortable when it gets to here. And that is probably the worst thing you can do. That's probably, if you are uncomfortable when it gets to this level and you decide to exit because you're uncomfortable, that means you're playing with too much money, or you're playing too emotionally or haphazardly or something. Because if you are calculating this whole thing in perspective, you should be comfortable going down to here. You should. If you're uncomfortable and you want to sell right here, then you're doing something wrong, because that's effectively what stop losses are for. So as far as the precept for this, stop losses are a dividing line between a comfortable trade and an uncomfortable trade. And so once it becomes uncomfortable, it is time to get out. And now that comfortability is also based off of invalidation. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can look at something. Let's look at a different chart, maybe something that's easier to see. Go on the daily. And so we'll go here because I talked about this in an earlier video today, so this makes sense. If you haven't watched it, it's like a 5-minute video on Twitter. So we're going to go ahead and pardon the noise in the background, but here I discussed that this is bullish to me for now, despite the fact that this is a descending wedge. Technically, it's also a continuation if you kind of go like this. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But if this goes here, if it crosses this line, and I mentioned this in my previous video, if it crosses the line, I'm going to long this position. So let's say it crosses here, I long here at 1892. Where would I put my stop loss? Would it make sense to put it here, 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 or here? And it depends. It depends on where you want to go. If you think that this trend line is not meant to be revisited, so the idea is you want to put your stop loss where your idea will be invalidated, or where the entire price chart will be no longer valid, right? So, and it's a combination of the two, but it's really more of the first one. It's where your chart, your trade becomes invalidated, your idea becomes invalidated. So with this, we have a few different ideas. One, if this is my entry And this, again, this goes along with the first video. My entry is based off of the break, so my entry is planned, right? So that kind of goes in line with the second idea in the first video. So if we want to use this stop loss as an invalidation point, if you want a more aggressive stop loss, you could put it back within this trend line. And the idea is you don't think that this is going to go back below the range. And now the problem is that, and this is very often with tight stops, it does tend to wick down. And so I'm not a big fan of tight stops myself because it's a little too risky. It depends on the type of pattern I'm working with. But generally, it also depends on your placement. So if you do this, this would be a more aggressive way to tighten your stop. So if you want to do it another way, you could maybe do a little more conservative within the trend line. So it's still back within the range and you still have a little bit more comfortable of a stop. All right, and so there's two more options, I'm sorry. Another option would be, here's your entry, and you could put it here on this little blue area. And this is designed to be, this is a liquidity area. This is like an area of support. And what you're trying to say is not only is it not going to break this, but it's also not going to break through here. So this is much more conservative. And the chances, the more, let's see, the more ways it needs to break through the price, the less likely it is to get there. So the more what is it called? The more obstacles you have to getting to an invalidation, the better. And so that's what I think, that's really the key of this video, honestly. It's best to put your stop loss where more obstacles are in the way in order to invalidate your trade, because that gives your trade more validity, and that allows your trade to be more successful. And on top of that, the more obstacles you have in your way, the higher size you can place your trade. Now, you could do something like this. I don't necessarily recommend it, but for every obstacle that's in your way, you could increase your size by 1%. And so you could do something like that. So that's another way to handle that. But that's the third option. The fourth option, and these are all subjective, of course, but same entry, but your invalidation point is past this, right? You have this, you also have a 200 EMA support there, so you could do something here. So this is below the liquidity mark, so that's much more conservative. You have an R of 1, and you have several obstacles. You got the trend line, you got an extensive candle close in here, you've got the touch of liquidity, and you have a breakthrough of liquidity. You actually can do one more, and that I just thought of while I was doing this, which was the 200 EMA. So this would go all the way down to 1725, and if you put that below, it would go below the EMA. So you have 5 options. Now, what's the problem with this? The problem is the R here is very poor. Here is pretty good. You have a 3R, that's pretty good, to 0.8, which is not so good. So what you could do is target the highs, get 4.63. Let's just go ahead and mark all these up here. And this is all practice. Like the take profit target is going to matter, and that will probably be for another video. So now you still only have an R value of 1.38. The good news about this one is it's very hard to break this. The bad news is you're not probably going to get a lot of money. So it just depends what you want to do. Here, you're very likely to get stopped out versus the rest of them, but you're likely to get a good return on your position. So you could even do in between here in the middle. I tend to do one of these. I like this one because it gives you an extra obstacle, because not only does it have to go inside, but it also has to close typically, unless you get like a 4.3% candle on the inside, right? And so this, you could get stopped out with a wick. This is unlikely to get stopped out with a wick. So this is just one down move, you're busted, right? This not only takes one down move, but kind of a stronger down move. So it's kind of like 1.5 obstacles. This is like 2 full obstacles. Not only does it have to go below, but it needs to tap into the liquidity. So that's like 2, even 2.5, right? This one, you got three obstacles. You got the wick down below, you got the liquidity, and the break. This one, tap down below, hold a liquidity break, and EMA break. So this is unlikely to break, and if it does, you got something else on your hands, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing with stop losses. And so I hope that really serves you well. Your placement is going to really be dependent on, again, where do you want your stop to invalidate. Don't think of it as, don't look at this and say, well, this number's higher, so I'm going to do it. That's wrong. That's a wrong way to look at it. That's where you start to gamble, right? And here, I always, and this could be why I'm a little bit of a late bloomer compared to other, I've known people I started crypto with that are already self-made millionaires, and they're already basically, they could be retired if they want to be, mainly because they took more risks than I did. I played it really cool, but I'm also still in the game versus there's a lot of people that, you only hear about the people that made it. You don't hear about the people that didn't make it because their voices are no longer heard. So I have known people that have busted and things like that. So I'm on more of the conservative crowd on this to, as far as trading goes, to play it with the best amount of risk to return. So if you don't know what to do, honestly, I would start off over here and work your way up. I would never start here and work your way down. I would always start as safe as possible and work your way through here. And in my experience with the academy, a lot of people they join, or they don't necessarily join because of this reason, but a lot of people are afraid to trade. A lot of people are afraid to lose money, and this is the least way to lose money. This is the least way to lose money. Well, first, mainly because your stop is so high, but also because it takes a lot to just go, like, nuking down 10% from here, not from here, but from up here, is unlikely. And statistically speaking, yes, it does happen, but it happens about once a year. It really does. Maybe twice. If you want to be a little more aggressive with those numbers, let's just say twice a year. And don't let something that happens once or twice a year dictate your entire year. So if you don't know where to start, I would start here and then kind of work your way up, and just know this is going to give you a high rate of return, but it's probably going to be more risky. And so you just need to play that out. You need to be smarter about it. So this is kind of a good just idea of looking at different stop losses and just kind of working with that. So I hope that this was something good for you. Again, if you haven't seen the first video, go ahead and check it out. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video. Again, like, subscribe if you like to, and have a nice day.